Welcome in to Rover Sports. We're officially live on our YouTube channel right now. I want to welcome in great buddy, Jetscentral, and really cool tech that we have here. We're officially live. And JC, man, how's it hanging? Just trying to get everything set. But JC, how's your night going, pal?
Yeah, man, it's doing good. Eager to talk some football.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So I wanted to first talk to you about Vontae Davis. Vontae goes to the Buffalo Bills. We have tons of Niner fans on my channel. What did you think of Vontae going to Buffalo? And I guess because he was released, he was able to make that move tonight.
Yeah, I think it's a good signing for the Buffalo Bills. You know, it's a low risk, high reward type of signing. It's only a 1-year deal, which is good. So if he doesn't really work out or if he's kind of plagued with injuries, it's not like the Buffalo Bills are going to be tied down or, in the hole having to spend, tons of money. So I like it. Vontae Davis is obviously talented and he could come in and put in work for the Buffalo Bills.
No doubt. And I think Vontae, like you look at Trey White and you look at that secondary, I think they have Poyer and Hyde. So they're building quite a juggernaut there. And I'm going to go on YouTube and check some of the comments. But if you guys have any questions for me and Jetscentral, I want you to ask that right now. So JC, you've been tracking the Kirk Cousins to Minnesota you've been tracking that kind of development there. And my question for you is, what do you think about all this steam and momentum for Kirk in Minnesota right now?
Yeah, I mean, as a Jets fan, I don't really like it at all because if I were to have Kirk Cousins sign elsewhere, I'd prefer it to be Denver, a team that's picking in front of the New York Jets, obviously making us have or getting us a better chance to get like a Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, or something like that. But right now, it's like all signs are pointing that the Minnesota Vikings are going to sign Cousins.
Right. But so you look at Denver. I think Denver right now is kind of almost looking towards Baker Mayfield as an option. Is there a chance that Josh Rosen, do you think, slips to number 6? Because there seems to be a lot of off-field concerns. And also you look at Brandon Beane, Ian, and he's a guy that just worked with Cam Newton. I think that Josh Allen would fit in Buffalo better, and this could just all be a smokescreen that they're interested in Josh Rosen right now.
Yeah, Spencer, you make a great point. I think you're totally right. Josh Allen, I think, is basically Cam Newton or a more polished Cam Newton coming out of college. They have the same skill sets, strong arms, mobile, big, can take a hit, durable, and whatnot. Only difference is that, Josh Allen played in a pro-style system that kind of came out of that kind of spread system at Auburn. Josh Allen, great player. I think he does fit kind of what the Buffalo Bills like to do on offense. I don't really know what to kind of expect from Dayball or his new system that he's going to install, but you'd have to assume that he's kind of going to build the system around whoever they, end up playing in 2018.
Absolutely. And so you're looking now at the quarterbacks, and what do you think about seeing these quarterbacks competing at the NFL Combine? Do you like that these guys are going to throw at the Combine?
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't know. Is everybody throwing? I know Rosen, Allen, and Baker are. Is Darnold throwing? Do you know? Interesting to see if he's been working on his mechanics.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, I think, is actually I think he might be the one guy that hasn't declared yet if he's going to throw. But you also have guys like Chase Liddon, Mike White. What quarterback prospects are you excited to see at the Combine?
Yeah, you just actually named two of them, Mike White and Chase Lynn. I'm totally pumped to see them. Mike White, obviously, we ran. And then Chase Lynn has like really good measurables. I think he's going to be weighed in at somewhere around 240. He's 6'6", has a really powerful arm. So I'm excited for those guys.
Go ahead.
Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
How you doing there? Bruce, the Sports Talk here. Spencer just doing some technical things. So just switching to basketball, Ian, it seems like the NCAA is being rocked with almost every program is being accused of paying people off. And, I wonder where this thing is going to end up. I think a lot of discussion here, and I'm sure where you are, it deals with whether they should pay players or, I don't think the NCAA is going to let all these Big Six teams implode.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just like the whole thing. I know it's you kind of sit on one end of the spectrum, whether or not players should be getting paid. Me personally, I just don't think it's ethical that a college program gets millions upon millions of dollars benefiting from like a young kid, and the kid doesn't even see a cent of it. Especially if you look at a kid like Lattimore coming out of the running back. I mean, I know I'm switching over to football, but I mean, he did a lot of good things for South Carolina, and then he blew his knee out at the tail end of his college career and couldn't really do anything at the NFL level.
Wait, so let me see. Ian, can you hear me right now with this mic, man? Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear.
Move over. Move over. Continue to move over. We're trying to figure. Now we're all in the screen. This is pretty good.
As I always say, is this your first Periscope, guys? It looks like our first one.
Again, now my mic is even getting hotter and hotter, I believe. I think I have to. You know what? If I actually took my mic off of mute, then that would actually help. But we got Ian, Jetscentral. He's right in the crib. Ian, I wanted to ask you a personal question, really personal, almost too personal for air, and that is you got to hang out with Dalton, UCF Jaguar, a lot, and how was that whole experience with UCF hanging in the cat cave there with UCF Jaguar?
Yeah, Dalton's a great dude. I love how we could always, go back and forth with football talk, whether it be the Jags or the Jets or the draft or pretty much anything. So, Dalton, I'd love to do it again sometime.
So what I was doing is I was seeing some questions. So, JC, I wanted to also ask you, now for the San Francisco 49ers, they miss out on Vontae Davis. They were in the Peter sweepstakes as well. Does this seem now like the 49ers are going to go after Josh Jackson or Denzel Ward? Because it seems like the Niners are doing everything they can to get Tremaine Edmonds out of Virginia Tech. So talk about Tremaine as a prospect and then maybe analyze the Niners seem like they want to get this cornerback situation out of the way.
Yeah, another thing I feel like, I should throw in is that Trumaine Johnson, the rival LA Rams, is going to be hitting the market along with Malcolm Butler from the New England Patriots. Both of those guys are going to be targets for the 49ers. They have a lot of money to pay, but you have to kind of shore up that position if you're San Fran. You have some great pieces on defense. You look at Reuben Foster, you look at Solomon Thomas, Armstead, Buckner, these guys trending up, which is really exciting. But you got to square that cornerback one position away. You have to figure it out, whether it be through the draft or free agency. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so my thoughts on it are that I look at Tremaine Edmonds, and I'm going to put on his highlight tape right now for these guys on YouTube. And again, we're live on YouTube, live on Periscope here with the Jetscentral. And as we're talking right now, Ian, as I look at Tremaine Edmonds, I just think that this guy's a freak of nature. I was originally on the Roquan Smith train, but this guy, I'm not going to say he kind of almost plays. I'm not saying he is this guy, but to me, he kind of is like an Urlacher or a Lawrence Taylor. Like, he's a basketball player, freaky instincts as an athlete. Like, his tape just blows you off of it just blows my mind watching this guy play the game. And it seems like John Lynch would love this type of kid if he had Reuben Foster so far on his draft board last year. I think that Tremaine Edmonds, if he runs a 4.5 or 4.6, he might even go in the top 3, this kid.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Tremaine Edmonds, he's actually my favorite prospect in the draft, other than Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA, is he's going to be 19 when he's going to be drafted. I mean, that is insane. To think about this guy at 19 dominating the way he is physically, it's crazy. I think he's going to go top 6 or 7.
Yeah, certainly John Lynch could appreciate the, a big hitter, being a safety himself, probably going to make the Hall of Fame next year anyway. And looking at this guy's tape, he just jumps, right at you and, reminds me a little of LT. And he could play linebacker, but he could rush like a defensive end. He really could play all the positions out there.
Yeah,
And we
totally
have
agree
Matt
with you.
Shanko on the Periscope as well. So Bruce, I wanted to ask you this question: if you're the New York Jets, and since we have Ian Jetscentral on the line, Ian's looking at this as, he would love to get Josh Rosen, but he's afraid that Rosen might go. And if it's not Josh Rosen, he wants Kirk Cousins. So what would you say the likelihood is, Bruce, that Josh Rosen gets to the Jets at number 6 and a team doesn't leapfrog like Buffalo from the clouds or Miami from the clouds? What are the chances that the Jets can snag Josh Rosen if Kirk is not there, Bruce?
I think it depends on the momentum of the draft. In other words, there's some drafts where they're very quarterback heavy, and once one team, in other words, if they start, if they pick Josh Allen and then Darnell, if they start rolling like that, he probably won't fall to 6. But there's some drafts where you just see a variety of different positions. So I think there's a chance you'll get him, but Cousins, I think, he'll probably. The question is, will he make his decision before the draft? He might decide on Denver or your Jets, and you just don't know. It might be clarified before the draft or during the draft, so it's going to be quite interesting.
Right. The whole thing is kind of funny when you think about it, because I feel like the Jets have so many opportunities to get their franchise quarterback, whether it be, through free agency or the draft, but there's still – or the doubt kind of creeps in that the Jets will mess it up somehow, some way, which is scary to me. But I think, if you're the New York Jets, you kind of have to, if you do miss out on Kirk Cousins, you have to pull the trigger on and trade up and go get your guy, go get the number 1 quarterback. Bruce, I think you could attest to this.
I could certainly, I could relate to that because that's what the Eagles did with Wentz. And a lot of people were naysayers. They thought, he's North Dakota State. And, that was the right move. We won the Super Bowl because of him, because we had a 13-3 record, even though he didn't play in the postseason. So if you have a chance to get a franchise quarterback, and it's a matter of your decision makers, whether they like Cousins or they think that Rosen is the guy, that could really launch your team. It could launch you right back up into contention.
Right, yeah. You can ask any Eagles fan, any Rams fan for that matter, do you regret trading up? And pretty much every answer is going to say no.
So Ian, as we sit here today, man, what are you looking forward to next week? What prospects are you looking for? Me and you are pretty similar on a lot of guys. Like Willie Hernandez is a guy that I think needs to have a big combine. But who are some wide receivers, some running backs? Who are you excited to see in Indy coming up this week?
Yeah, the wide receiver position is kind of shaky. I'm going to be interested to see how well Calvin Ridley runs. Is he going to be kind of a 4-5, 4-4 guy or a 4-3, 4-4, excuse me. Auden Tate is another guy who I think is going to check in from Florida State. He's going to have really high measurables. He's a big dude. He's going to be a red zone threat in the National Football League. But yeah, I'm pretty eager to see, quarterbacks, obviously, and then the running backs, with the success that Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt had last season so late in the draft. I mean, you can look at running backs really from the top 5 rounds and say we can get a starting back. So those are always interesting to see as well.
And you look at John Kelly from Tennessee. He's a guy that could possibly, surprise. Carry-on's a guy that got hurt last year, but he's going to be further forth. The Rashad Penny. I mean, unfortunately, when you have a guy like Donnell Pumphrey come from San Diego State, like originally it was just Marshall Faulk, but now you have Donnell Pumphrey, who kind of was a failure at the NFL level. So, I mean, I still think Rashad Penny's a very good back. And Ian, I wanted to ask you. We do have a question from Marcos Levy. He has a comment, and that's going to lead me to another question. But I wanted to ask you, right now, Anthony Miller from Memphis, a guy who I love, he's slated in the 4th round, which is just crazy to me. I think this guy's a stud. We've talked about Anthony before. Give your thoughts on Anthony, and do you think he's going to climb draft boards this week?
Yeah, I really like Anthony Miller out of Memphis. He actually reminds me a little bit of a Jarvis Landry style of receiver. I feel like he could put up wide receiver number 1 numbers, but he doesn't really clock in or measure as a X wide receiver. Doesn't have the speed, but he has hands and he's tough.
And so Marcos Levy writes in, and Bruce, I'm going to let you here comment and ask Ian questions as well. We have Jetscentral on the line. If you guys have any Jets questions, he's going to try to join us maybe every Monday. And we're also going to make this into our podcast, which you can find on iTunes. This is going to go up as an audio podcast. I'm going to download all this audio, so it's going to be terrific. Marcos Levy basically said the Niners are getting way too much hype. The Niners, I think, are the 7th team right now in the betting lines to win the Super Bowl. And I look at Jimmy Garoppolo. The guy hasn't lost a damn game yet, and this feeds right into to my channel. I mean, what do you think about the Niners? Are they overhyped? Is Jimmy going to win the MVP? I mean, could they do it? What do you think?
I think the bottom line is this, is that the 49ers are trending up big time. You know, you look at the team that they have right now, they don't really have a lot of superstars on the team, and that's okay. You know, you saw just the impact that Jimmy G had once he was acquired by San Francisco. You said it best. He didn't even lose a game, you know, and he did play well against great defenses like the Jacksonville Jags. So, you know, I like the way the 49ers are kind of trending. They obviously they're going to pick in the draft. They have a lot of money to spend. I love the direction that the Niners are heading in.
Sure. So we're here with Jetscentral, and of course we want to thank you so much for joining this podcast about the NFL Combine coverage in Indy. You know, you've watched the Combine a couple of years. Is there something you'd love to see the NFL Network do this year? Like sometimes they maybe cut out on the running of the 40 too much. I mean, how entertaining do you find the Combine, and what do you think about the coverage that the NFL Network's going to provide for us this week?
Right. I mean, I like the Combine. I mean, I know a lot of people kind of find it tedious to sit through the whole entire thing, but me personally, I like watching it. The one thing I guess I can maybe ask for is just a little bit, like, try to interview some players. You know, let's get these guys, like, get the personalities kind of on TV, not just like a whole bunch of guys standing around when they're not throwing or running or, you know, stuff like that. So
I totally agree. You know, you look at something like the Olympics, which to me is very, very boring, and you try to personalize the stories. These guys also really enjoy talking. We met the guy from Nebraska last year.
He was the linebacker, Nate Geary.
Nate Geary, for instance. It just so happened we had access to him because he was doing an Under Armour event. And I think that these guys like to promote their own brand, and they're outgoing guys. Dalvin Cook was also extremely friendly. Corey Davis was very available. So you're right. I think for the average fan, to be able to actually hear them talk and not just see them running drills or running patterns, I think the NFL Network would do a lot better. I also think Lucas Oil Stadium is a big stadium. Why would it hurt to let a few fans in the seats? You know, really. These guys are supposed to be professionals. They should be able to play with crowd noise. You're in Indianapolis, which is a nice town. Why not open it up to some fans? That's what I would do to make the Combine a little more interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Bruce just ended you right there, Jetscentral. He just put everything in the box there, and all JC had to do was bow down to the advisor here. Bruce Grossinger, Dr. G, is in the house. So, JC, we have a question now from Troy Johnson. He's a huge Baltimore Ravens guy. He's a Ravens guy. He's a I think he's actually a Virginia Tech fan, and he wants to personally ask you a question about the elder statesman, the father of 20 kids, and that is Joshua McCown. And what did you think of him last year?
Yeah, I've always liked Josh McCown off the field. He's a stand-up guy. You know, he does a lot in the communities, and you know, supposedly he's a great teammate. Every single team or teammate loves him. Every player just raves about him, his like leadership skills, and just like how nice of a guy he is. And he's confident too, which is always cool. But as far as the long-term plans for the New York Jets, I don't really think that McCown, you know, should be signing a 5-year deal with the team or anything like that. Obviously, just
if he did that, he'd be 50 years old.
Yeah, obviously, just because he's so old, you know. But I did like, you know, what he kind of displayed last season. I know, whatever, we've only won 5. We won 5 games last year. It's not really that much to rave about, but with the talent on the team, I like what McCown put together.
Ian, we now are getting some questions in from other NFL guys and other fan bases. And unfortunately, this guy, I kind of almost feel bad for him because he's a Cincinnati Bengal fan that writes into our podcast, and I appreciate Jazzy hanging out with us. But before I get into his question, what do you think about the bizarre decision to keep Marvin Lewis? I'm sorry that I'm kind of asking this question and already I'm giving you my side of things, but what do you think about old Marv staying there for 2 more years?
Yeah, definitely an interesting decision. I like Marvin Lewis as a talent evaluator. I think he does a really good job of picking players. I mean, it's really rare that you see Cincinnati sign big-name free agents. I feel like their players are always leaving in free agency. So I feel like Marvin Lewis knows how to draft, and I would just prefer to see him in a executive level or maybe even a GM position way down the line. I don't know so much as a head coach.
Question I have here in Philly, the weird thing is even like the day after the Super Bowl, the whole speculation is what would the Eagles need to get to trade Nick Foles? And it seems like a lot of people, particularly the columnists around here, are wondering, will it take a number 1? Would it take a number 1, number 3? In my opinion, they should just sign him for like a 3-year extension. And why focus on getting rid of Nick Foles? And another question is for somebody like a New York Jets fan, is there a franchise, despite the fact that he played incredibly well, he's only 29 years old, he's 6'6", pretty good arm, a lot of leadership. Is there a franchise out there that wants to build their franchise around Nick Foles? And you being a national guy, Ian, what do you think about that?
I think Nick Foles obviously did what was asked of him in the amazing playoff run. But I'm not sold personally on Nick Foles. I like him. I just feel like he almost benefited, and I don't want to seem like I'm disrespecting your team or anything like that. But
no,
I feel
don't
like
worry. Go right ahead.
He's on top.
Benefited a lot from. Yeah, he benefited a lot from Doug Peterson.
I've gotten that for 50 years already.
Ian, no one likes them. No one likes them.
No one likes us. No one likes us. No, I'm not going to sing the Jason Kelsey song. I'm not going to do it.
No one likes
That's
them.
Clickbait.
No one likes them, and no one actually cares about them either, really.
Yeah, but Doug Peterson, ex-NFL quarterback, Frank Reich, ex-NFL quarterback, and then DeFilippo, who's a quarterback whisperer. I think Foles' destination would be the Minnesota Vikings and follow, his former Eagles coach.
Ian, you know what I think would be hysterical, man, is at the NFL Combine if they did like a whole weigh-in like in hand size measurements at the NFL Combine. I think that would just be crazy, like just televising everything. But I wanted to talk to you about Blake Bortles, Jacksonville Jaguars, our buddy UCF. What'd you think of the extension for Blake?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Blake Bortles fan. Obviously, he has a lot of physical traits. He has a strong arm. He's mobile. He's bigger. He's durable, too. He seems to be – he never really misses any games. But I'm not sold on the turnovers. I just feel like that's a big red flag. His mechanics have kind of deteriorated throughout the years. I'm not so sure that Blake Bortles is the answer for the Jacksonville Jags. What are your thoughts on that whole extension?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like for Jacksonville, it's a decent decision to keep Blake because they're more flexible now, and they obviously didn't commit so much money to him. So I like McCarron better than Blake Bortles, but maybe AJ wants more money, and I'm interested to see where McCarron's going to end up. So I think it's a decent move, though. Yeah,
one thing we could talk about, certainly, we're it's NBA season, and a 3-year deal is not really a 3-year deal in the NFL. And you don't have a lot of dead cap space in that deal. Certainly, Bortles played well. He got rewarded for a playoff run, and they could always trade him or cut him after a year. So I guess that's just rewarding a guy and showing loyalty. I think Tom Coughlin is a very loyal person, and so I don't think it's a terrible deal on second blush. At first blush, it was a little curious. When you think about it, it makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you look at the big picture, the deal makes perfect sense. But when you actually start like looking at like the nitty gritty and like kind of almost looking at the details in depth, it's kind of me personally. I mean, this is just my opinions. I just don't know how I feel about it.
Ian, thanks so much, man. We're going to talk to you later in the week. This was a lot of fun getting you to come on here late.
And we're jealous of your tan because we're here in Philly, and it's like a groundhog. We've seen rain for 6 straight days, and we're waiting to see our own shadow up here.
Well, you guys are always welcome down in Florida, so thank you guys so much for having me on.
No doubt, Ian. Thanks so much. And that is my good friend Jetscentral. Thanks, Ian, again. So that's Ian Jetscentral, and he is officially signing off of the podcast. I'm going to now open this up if I possibly can to just us.
Can you do the Rover logo? Can you pull that in?
Maybe it's just us right now, and going to widen this puppy out so that we can actually take up an appropriate screen. Okay. And, there we are.
So what I'd like to do is number one
version of us.
This is a fathead version. Our faces look fat. Look like pumpkins.
Fat over fat. Faff.
Fuff. The word Philly, so there's a lot of fat people here.
Yeah,
and why shouldn't we be just as fat as them?
I'm almost fat, but I try not to be.
That's
I'm
right.
on the verge of being fat, and I just kind of I'm just dwindling a little bit. And
so number one, we saw a great game in the ACC tonight. I'm not a big Duke fan. I'll be the first to admit it. But Virginia Tech just had a great victory at home. And Buzz Williams had an interesting point where people were they were saying BS, over for a call. Yeah. And Buzz just jumped on the mic and said, "Stop cussing." And it was pretty cool, and they actually listened to him. So for all you people out there, and you Duke VT people, that was a really good college basketball game that ended with the tipping at the buzzer. And you got to love it as we approach the tournament. And my guy Joe Lenardi, who's right down the street at St. Joe's, this is the time, of year where he's on all the time. And
he's on call.
Otherwise, he's kind of ignored.
Otherwise, Joseph is on call, Joseph Lenardi. And going to widen this puppy out so that, me and you again, I think we look decent. That's even better. Just so our faces are not puffed out to the max. Just so our faces look like it wasn't
I obviously got
powdered.
Caught in the rain today. So I'm having a bad hair day, but we're still going to deal with this anyway.
Joe Lenardi has a cushy gig because the thing about Joseph Lenardi is that, Joe Lenardi is a guy that basically just comes out of hiding for, just about maybe 5 to 10 minutes every year.
Well, actually, he comes out a lot. Like on ESPN, he comes out for 5 to 10 minutes an hour. And so he's getting a lot more airtime this year. But much like Mel Kiper, after the draft, Mel Kiper goes back into his hole.
Yes.
And then he comes back. So those guys they really peak on one day of the year. And and I would think that they have a lot in common that way.
You're right, Mel, and also you're getting some more competitors, in that field. But you saw the Duke Blue Devils lose tonight, to Virginia Tech, and that's a tough game. I can't figure out Duke. I don't think I really trust them in the tournament. They don't have good point guard play. They never really could establish defense. So I'm not the biggest Duke guy. Bruce, is there any teams that you look at this year that you think are going to be locks to go far in the tournament?
Well, I can tell you, watching Villanova, we're right here in Philly. We see a lot of Villanova basketball. I haven't been. They just lost 3 straight. And Creighton, had Harrell was injured. They went to CenturyLink Center, and Jason Brunson tried to force it at the end of the game. Now he might be an All-American, but he really lost the game for them. They've got Mikal Bridges, but they're just not really loaded. And the Big East is a soft, league overall. So I think Villanova's, again, we love Dr. Steve Lewis, who's a Villanova alum, but I think they're overrated. As far as teams, Oklahoma obviously fell like a stone. They're very much overrated. I really like Kansas. I like teams that have size down below and have balance. Kansas is peaking at the right time. I do like Kansas. That's a team that's, I would say, buy Kansas and sell Villanova right now.
I'm actually the opposite. I look at Kansas. It's a one-man show, just Devontae Graham out there playing. I don't think Kansas really has great guys on the interior at all, other than Lightfoot and maybe that guy's a shot blocker.
The guy's a shot blocker, the African guy. He's very dynamic. Reminds me of a little of Embiid, obviously, because he's an African guy, and he's got freakish skills and blocking skills.
From an African country.
I think he might be – is he from Cameroon? I'm not sure.
Maybe.
I think he's from Cameroon. But that's
Bill
the one thing
Self
Bill Self definitely gets the direct line. But the way the team plays, I think they played strong, and in their division, they play a lot of good competition.
We have a question in from some of our guys here, and Marcus Peters, this deal was officially announced, Bruce. Marcus Peters, considered a great cornerback in the NFL. I think he's a little bit like Asante Samuel in the sense that he takes a lot of risks. He comes up with a lot of interceptions. He was an all-pro guy for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's been dealt. He has 2 years left on his rookie contract, so it's really a great haul for Kansas City. He was a first-rounder. He got traded to the LA Rams this past week, and the Chiefs in return got a 4th rounder this year and a second rounder for 2019, the next year's draft.
It's a little curious.
Marcus Peters got kicked out of Washington. Marcus Peters is a guy that got thrown out of a game this year. He had some issues just with KC fans, with Oakland fans. He was out there taking a picture of Marshawn Lynch. So the guy is obviously a distraction off the field, and it just seemed like if you polled most Chiefs fans, they'd be so upset about this Marcus Peters situation. Do you have any thoughts on the matter about this Marcus Peters situation?
This is what I do. I believe, Andy Reid was here at Philadelphia for 14 years. He is he's a Mormon. He doesn't drink. He's got really strong morals. He lost a kid, to drug abuse. I think he's very risk averse when it comes to the locker room and personalities. And I do believe you're hitting on the right thing. It's not about his play on the field. I think that he might be kind of a so-called cancer to the locker room. A 4th and a 2nd for a guy of that talent. There's a reason they unloaded him, and that's my thoughts. So I think Andy Reid just doesn't want him on his team, and he unloaded him for the best he could get, actually.
And I think that the Chiefs, as long as they field a defense, I have so much confidence. Like Kansas City trading Alex Smith just tells you that Pat Mahomes is ready to take over the show. And that's the one player I'm excited to see. I have a couple of players.
Sure, there's a few other players. There's more than one player you're excited to see.
So for Prove It years, I think that next year is a huge year for David Johnson of the Arizona Cardinals, the running back that was considered to be almost a lock for a guy that would be maybe a Hall of Fame caliber player. He went to one of my favorite schools, Northern Iowa, actually, and played football there, a great Missouri Valley program. And so David Johnson has a huge year, but also Derek Carr playing with John Gruden. Can Derek Carr bounce back? Can he have a better career? Can he have more longevity than his brother David had?
Well, I think he already does, as being a starter with some gravitas. The one thing I was concerned about, and I am concerned about Carr, is the shoulder. He's been injured several times, his throwing shoulder. You remember Chad Pennington, great guy, good friend of Rover Sports. I saw that Oakland game in Philly, which was really cold, very windy. And Derek Carr just didn't have arm strength. When Derek Carr comes east, when he played the Redskins killed him. I think they shut him out.
Yeah.
So does he have the strength to play? Is he going to be playoff tested? It's wintertime. I mean, aside from Oakland, which is pretty good weather, right in the Bay City, does he have the arm strength? Can he fight off injuries? He looked hurt and beaten up a lot at the end of this year, and he's a young guy, and again, there's a comment there. He's not Super Bowl caliber, and that may be true, and I like that comment.
I think that Derek Carr, too, is questionable, but a guy that I'd completely rule out, or a guy that I even have less confidence in, that's kind of seeming like lightning in a bottle, and this guy has all the intangibles. A guy that I just don't believe in. Well, I don't believe in two guys that are rated very high. One, Dak Prescott. I think that Dak Prescott lacks, scary arm strength as well. I would take Cousins over Dak Prescott. I would take Mahomes over Dak Prescott.
Do you know what I believe in?
Who?
First Amendment and boobs.
You're trying to be Clay, aren't you?
Try to be a little bit of Clay Travis. You just set me up for that one.
You're just trying to be Clay Travis. So, Bruce, we have some Niner fans. I want to get to one of our last Niner topics before we dive into, a little bit of our college basketball scandal here of Sean Miller and everything, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that. But first...
Yeah, that's a meaty topic, and we're definitely going to take comments from our audience. Firstly, a little station ID. We're Rover Sports. We broadcast live on ESPN Philly, 6:10 a.m. Tune in radio app Wednesdays from 7 to 8. That's Eastern time. We also do a lot of live streams. We do watch parties, Sixers are actually interesting this year. And obviously, we're going to be covering, it looks like we're going to be P.J. Wheelahands in Edgemont. We're going to be doing Thursday night, the first night of March Madness, and it's going to be a live show. We're going to have everything. We're going to have YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and we're going to have great sound. So we're just promoting that. We're Rover Sports. I'm Bruce the Sports Doc. Spencer G here. Thanks, Rico Long, for the compliments. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream.
Yeah, thanks, Rico. I appreciate that. The Gold Sales asking about Tannehill. Troy Johnson says the Sixers are having a great year this year. King Braz comments that he wishes he got paid as much as Derek Carr just to throw into triple coverage.
It's a cool name. I like that, King Braz.
King Braz. These names are great. Some
right.
of my
so keep
fan
logging
names
in, keep commenting.
Keep commenting, absolutely. I'm going to get to a question, on YouTube. I'd say that the Niner empire is about double the size of any other fan base out there.
That's right. When you do Garoppolo film stream, we have to thank everybody in San Fran. You guys are great. Biggest fans of Spencer G.
Biggest fans.
And they didn't realize they thought you were like 40 years old when they first listened to it. They realize you're actually a young guy.
Maybe not. I don't know. But hopefully have the maturity of a 40-year-old like Mike Gundy. I hope I'm
a 4-year-old?
A 40.
Oh, never mind.
But I actually don't. But maybe it's just the voice combined with a slight cold that was even worse today, earlier in the day. But I love to go to bed at night, Bruce, and it's such a dopamine or such a self-esteem booster when you can just refresh that page and just see them uplift the Jimmy Garoppolo video, just hoist it into the air.
Yep. It's also a great town. San Fran is a wonderful town
fun.
Anyway. We always enjoy our time there. Little time in Palo Alto, great place. Chinatown, Alcatraz, always fun to see at nighttime.
Not fun to go, but
not
fun
to go. Fun to leave, but not fun to
Chinatown and boobs, baby.
In the First Amendment, that's the stuff I believe in.
But the boobs are right there on Chinatown. So imagine you got chicken lo mein, wonton soup, and you can. I think
one of your first couch dances was in San Fran. And girl was very hospitable there.
Never will forget it.
That's just something you don't forget. It goes right on the mantle.
Right on the mantle for sure. But, 2 minute greatest 2 minutes in sports, Secretariat ain't got nothing on me. Rick Pitino ain't got nothing on me.
One thing he's got is a lot of Adidas money. There's some rumors, we can't really disclose our sources, but one of the rumors is that Rick Pitino, all the money, I think it might have been $20 million that was going to Louisville, he got it all in cash, 99%. If that's really true and they can prove that, then it'll make Sean Miller look like a choir boy.
What's funny, Bruce, is that I was talking about this to myself on my own Periscope that I, talk to myself on, basically.
Yeah, well, people actually listen sometimes.
People listen, but it's just a time to talk to my best friend, which is myself, being a reclusive.
And you can always trust yourself.
Being a J.D. Salinger type of guy and just talking to myself. But, what I was going to say is that, if you were to poll people on whether they like Sean Miller or Mark Emmert of the NCAA, I don't think
everybody will say Sean Miller.
Sean Miller's not even getting that much heat right now, Bruce.
Well, that brings us to the whole issue is, if there's truly 20 teams in the NCAA, all of the teams are essentially guilty of this. A lot of times the assistant coaches are the ones that take the fall. It's usually the head coach, like Rick Pitino, is buffered from that. And Sean Miller said he wanted to do the $100,000 deal himself. Probably that's the kind of attention he didn't need. And he is a good coach. And he's 39 years old? He's a young guy.
Sean Miller.
It's not like Pitino's a 65-year-old guy who's kind of at the end of his career.
So Pig Boy's actually an Arizona fan that's chiming into the podcast. Sean Miller was a good coach. He never could beat actually the Wisconsin Badgers. If you listen to Frank Kaminsky, those guys are pretty happy that they were able to beat Arizona. I like that team with Aaron Gordon, Hollis Jefferson, TJ. One of our favorite guys, TJ, was on that Arizona team.
Yep, TJ McConnell. Certainly a guy I didn't slate it to be a player of the NBA, let alone a sixth man. But he's a hustler, and he's gotten better every year.
I mean,
Sean's 50. Okay, I guess 39. He was really 49. Okay,
well, the
50.
thing is, when I look at the best win that Sean Miller ever had, and I don't know if he's ever going to get rehired after this. Now, the crazy thing about all of this is that Sean Miller might be actually going to the I don't know if all these
going to FAU
if all
to
these
join Lane Kiffin?
if all these coaches were fired, if all these coaches were fired from collegiate basketball, Bruce. Dan Wetzel said today that he believes when this FBI wiretap is all set and done,
it's going to impugn everybody.
He said a Yahoo writer today said 20 to 25 Division I coaches
that was already
in the Power
reported.
Five are going to be fired.
No, yeah, true. That was
No.
I'm not
he
sure
said
they'll
that they're
going
to get fired.
So you're telling me, look at all the guys. You're telling me Coach K, Roy, Bill Self. That's just not going to happen. The NCAA, that's their property.
Right.
For them to lose all that value, it's money. That's just not going to happen. So I disagree with that.
It's a money hog, absolutely, like you were alluding to earlier, Bruce. Our good buddy UCF Jaguars joining the podcast right now. We always can go ahead and divulge into questions, although we do like, Bruce, to sometimes
How do you divulge into questions?
Divulge.
I like that word. Divulge is a great word.
It's just a word that
questions
sometimes just pops up.
They don't always go together, but that's okay.
Sometimes we like to get in a flow where we talk about one topic, but we do want to interact with the fan bases as well.
Let's see. Do we have a question?
We do have questions here. Fix Squad, which again, I don't know if that's the real name of that guy, but I think that's
certainly his nickname.
Nice acronym.
His girlfriend calls him that.
His girlfriend, or maybe he calls her that.
She calls him the Chodmeister.
The Chodmeister. Chodmeister Flash, right, Bruce?
That's his nickname. That's what we call him, Thick.
Yeah. So basically, Bruce, that's a little distracting. He says
that's a complete non sequitur. It has nothing to do with the basketball discussion.
He's a big Big Ten football fan. He says the Big Ten is better than the Southeastern Conference for football.
I can't agree with that. I'm an SEC guy.
Let's list the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, firstly, Penn State's been really good. Michigan is on the rise.
Yes.
Ohio State. Iowa had one good game.
Jim McElwain, Ferenz is super overrated. That whole family just owns Iowa City, for some reason. He never gets on the hot seat at all. He's just going to be the coach there for thousands and thousands of years. I do love the Scott Frost hire. I do love P.J. Fleck. So to tell you the truth, they're trending upward. Now, the crazy thing about Michigan is that they're hiring the Shark man, Jim McElwain, to be the offensive coordinator there. And he was just
interesting.
He was so awful at Florida.
McElwain is going to be that's going to be
the offensive coordinator with Harbaugh.
Harbaugh,
I think he's favored for the job.
He's a salty dog, and McElwain is another reminds me of a blue blood kind of a guy, like a Masters guy, an Augusta dude. I just think those guys there could be some fireworks there. That'll be exciting. I'm glad to hear that. Actually, I like fireworks.
You like fireworks?
About stuff to talk about.
Jim McElwain meant real fireworks.
Was he really posing nude on the Shark? No, let's not go there.
He says he wasn't, but you call him.
Yeah, he looked exactly like it looked like him.
It looked like James McElwain. But anyway, I look at the SEC. They do have the best draft picks. But I look at the coaching hires. I'm not a huge Jeremy Pruitt guy right now. I like what Chad Morris is going to bring to Arkansas. Kirby Smart was a hell of an investment. I think Dan Mullen's going to be a great investment. I would say it's Big Ten. I would say SEC right now is just slightly ahead of the Big Ten, but the Big Ten has surpassed, with Scott Frost hiring, has surpassed the Big 12. I think Scott Frost is just going to be incredible for Nebraska.
I think he will. I think P.J. Fleck, for any of you people know, he was undefeated at Western Michigan. One of the most inspiring people, not only coaches, but at Minnesota, and he's really devoting a lot of time recruiting. Minnesota obviously has 30 years of terrible football, but if people love PJ, obviously his team is undersized. He doesn't have a lot of athleticism. It's going to take him a couple of years to rebuild that program, to actually build it, I should say, because you're not rebuilding it. So yeah, I'm saying we certainly like the Big Ten, but the SEC really is maybe we're a little biased because we cover them a little bit
I think
preferentially.
that the SEC, yeah, I mean, I just think though that like all SEC championship, it's very close. But if you look throughout the conference, even Drew Lock at Missouri, they went out and got Derek Dooley actually. And another part of SEC news before we bounce to other topics is Butch Jones. Nick Saban's actually considering hiring Butch Jones to the Alabama staff.
Well, there's one reason. I think Nick's getting tired of his coaches getting hired away by other teams. If he hires Butch, I think he's going to be like kryptonite. I don't think anybody's going to want to touch him.
No one will
Don't
touch
leave him
him
alone. He's like a pile of dog do.
Yeah, he's a pile of band
And I would never say
dog
anything bad about
crap.
Butch Jones.
Not at all.
I would never badmouth anybody.
A bunch
not
of
on
5-star hearts.
Rover Sports.
5-star hearts and, basically life championships for Butch. I was going to ask you, Bruce, about a guy, Hugh Freeze, and I really wanted to get a little bit
interesting bio
into the nuts and bolts of this, and then I want to end.
No pun intended. More nuts than bolts with him.
So how did Hugh Freeze meet the prostitutes in Florida? How do you arrange that?
You acted like I have some inside information.
No, but how
TMZ?
How would you go about that?
It's probably called actually picking up your cell phone, calling a
calling where? I mean, hooker houses are not listed in the normal market.
Well, there's something
they're illegal in the state of Florida.
Well, let me say they're illegal actually technically everywhere. But
Nevada on the outskirts.
So to answer
of
the
Nevada,
question,
that's
there's
the
something
only places.
There are two, I guess, notorious sites. One is called Backpage.com, and there's prostitutes everywhere on there. There's another site called Craigslist where so if somebody wants to be stupid, the problem is a lot of those that list there do get stung, and you freeze.
Are they independent contractors? Those prostitutes, those females.
The ones that are not smuggled in. Obviously there's a lot of illegal smuggling underage people. There's a lot of bad things happening there, but. So I have no idea what his sources were. I don't think anybody could really answer that.
Ole Miss played in the Swamp a couple of years ago, and it was when Will Grier was the quarterback at Florida. And it was a game that Ole Miss was favored to really compete in. I think they might have had Bo Wallace at the time. And it was before Will Grier decided to put peptides into his body and transfer schools. And Ole Miss lost that game like 31-7. I was like, what the hell is wrong with the Rebels? If you connect the dots, it could be possible that Hugh Freeze was having his episode during that time. Now, do you think that the prostitute...
He might have ducked out during the game?
Could the hooker have been a Florida fan and leaked... Like, how did Ross Bjork and the Ole Miss athletic department, how did they get their hands on the calls between Hugh Freeze and the escort? How did Ross Bjork or the NCAA get that phone call? That's my question to you.
Well, my answer is that somebody was probably following or wiretapping the prostitutes, and then I think that blew back. Somebody leaked that out to the media, and other than that, I think it's pure speculation. I don't think anybody could really answer that.
We'll go to another topic here. A lot of people are asking about Lamar Jackson. And, a lot of people, when you talk about Lamar Jackson, some people think that he has huge big play potential. Michael Vick said himself that he thinks Lamar Jackson is better than than he was at this age. And then you have guys like Bill Polian saying that he's not even going to be allowed to play the position that he played in college, which is quarterback. So which side of the fence are you on with Lamar Jackson?
I'm kind of leaning towards Bill Polian a little bit. And the complexity of the NFL playbook is staggering. And Lamar is, obviously had a great college career. I listened to him talk. I listened to him answer questions. And as a neurologist, I actually determine somebody's intelligence by their vocabulary, not the way, the manner they speak. But he just doesn't impress me as a particularly intelligent guy or average intelligence. And to play in the NFL, you just need to have superior intelligence at that position. So, I mean, I don't know beyond that, but I'm a little bit unsure. And I root for the kid to succeed, but I'm a little unsure, I guess, is my best answer.
He's going to have to go to a system that, I think he'd be perfect with Shady in Buffalo. Simplified system. I mean, with Petrino, they ran so many draw plays. So there's so many systems. Like if he goes out to Arizona with Mike McCoy, if he goes to a system where they're going to try to make him 5-step drop and do all these complicated things and just get away from simplifying the game, I think that he can run into a lot of trouble. But in terms of his arm talent, I would take Lamar Jackson over Mason Rudolph any day of the week. I would take Lamar Jackson over Luke Falk. Like Lamar Jackson, Luke Falk, and Mason Rudolph, there's no way that they're going to succeed. They're automatically just barred from competing because Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State, his arm is basically the arm of Connor Cook, and Luke Falk's arm is Matt Moore combined with Trent Edwards or something. As much as I love Luke Falk from an intangible value, the guy cannot make the guy cannot throw an out route. He's going to be like Kevin Hogan 3.0 when you look at those two.
I think the combine, I think for Lamar Jackson, the combine should be a big deal. There's a lot of interviewing that goes on. They do the Wonderlic, the famous Wonderlic test, and I think they're going to try to throw some complexity. The offense that, I don't think a running quarterback or a guy who does a lot of running is going to have a lot of longevity in the NFL, even as you saw with Carson Wentz, who's a gigantic person, and he just ran and once too many times. And the RPO, the thing that Nick Foles runs, which is kind of like the option where you don't run yourself, but you have a run-pass option, I think that's going to be in vogue. I think a lot of people will be stealing that from the Eagles in the upcoming year. And maybe there are guys that just may not be very articulate, but they have a lot of Terry Bradshaw is supposed to be an unintelligent person, as far as his IQ. But he won 4 Super Bowls and a great arm. He's very entertaining.
He's just drinking all the time.
Even with whatever he's doing. Yeah. But so it's just a matter of the football IQ, and that's something we can't really judge. What do you think about his football IQ?
I still think Lamar Jackson, I still think that the guy can have decent intelligence levels. Like, if you're talking about would you rather have a franchise around Lamar Jackson or Josh Rosen, like, I'm picking Lamar Jackson. I really am, because that kid is a competitor. He loves football, and Josh Rosen rubs me the wrong way. But someone's saying here Kyle Lauletta out of Richmond. I mean, if Kyle Lauletta's going to succeed, he might have to go, to the LA Chargers to succeed. But that's the ultimate thing about Lamar Jackson, is he's the most polarizing player in this draft class. I think he can be every bit as good as Teddy Bridgewater, but I'm definitely not rating him higher than my big three, which is, Baker and Josh Allen. Those are my 2 guys, as we kind of look forward. So here we go. Believers puts in the conversation. And Troy Johnson, my guy, loves Joshua Rosen. Same with Jetscentral. And King Braz says Jimmy G, Deshaun Watson, or Patrick Mahomes. So, Bruce, maybe we can go should we maybe go a couple more minutes? Are you okay to go a couple?
Yeah, maybe like 2 minutes. We got some
Let's
stuff
do a
to
quick.
do
I want to do a quick 2-minute talk with you, and we'll talk all the time about the quarterbacks and all the NFL talk. But I want to end this conversation here with this topic. And what is your solution, Bruce, for the NCAA here with college basketball? Like, how
I've heard a lot of things.
Yes,
I'm gonna answer a couple things. Number one, I think that you should let the kids get endorsements. That is, instead of slipping them under the table, I think they should be able to get endorsements, and the NCAA should be hands off. I also think maybe with the Big Six, maybe there should be a salary cap, honestly, for the teams, and they have to fit their recruiting under the salary cap. And I just think that you have to pay the players because they're getting paid anyway, and obviously the sports like basketball and football that are revenue producing are the ones their players are going to be paid. But sports I played, like tennis, golf, even college ice hockey, lacrosse, all that, crew, you're not going to get paid. But if a college is making millions and millions building a stadium like Texas A&M, all on the backs of the players, if for these guys to have to eat like macaroni and cheese every day and not to be able to get paid, I personally think that that's un-American, and I also think somebody made a statement that I think they said it was racist actually, and I think they might be right. For instance, hockey players and baseball players, they're allowed to. They don't have to go to college. They could go to the minor leagues. But But why do people have a problem with people jumping out of college, going to the NBA? And I don't. And I think it's capitalism. And I don't think they should be forced to do the one and done thing. I guess that's a combination answer. And we want our fans to react to it.
Well, you look at, the one sport where it is complex is the sport of football. Now, you can look at a couple of exceptions, like I think Leonard Fournette at age 19 is a man-child, and he could have played in the league. But you look at a lot of guys, and it's important for the bodies to mature, a little bit in college for football. But you look
that's very true. So there's definitely a difference between basketball and football, and you could be a thin guy coming out of college, or even a LeBron James who's a complete freak. But in football, you need a certain size about you, and so there are, they're different. You can't treat every sport the same, but I think it has to be an open discussion. And I think at this point, rather than fire all the 20 top coaches, the fact is this stuff is going on. It's just a little bit analogous to the steroid issue in baseball. Everybody was doing it in order to win. People were paying money, or else, and if you lose, what happens? If you're a coach, what happens to you? You get fired.
Nothing.
No. I'm saying if you lose, if your team doesn't win,
yes,
you get fired.
But if the NCAA catches you, they'll take away a piece of plastic, which is what a banner was.
They also could take away. Look at Sean Miller.
It's a slap on the wrist.
They took away Sean Miller,
initially.
possibly his livelihood.
Before the FBI came in, the NCAA had no control over this. It was Wild West. They knew it was going on the entire time. The NCAA just got the FBI to come in and do the big boy work for them. And that's what really happened. But
yeah, and so I just think it's just the beginning. And you're going to see a lot of this stuff rolling, and this is going to be a real fertile discussion that isn't going to go away.
My solution is 18 years old, get to the pros. Just make it 18 years old. That eliminates a lot of stuff.
Another one thing, I don't mean to cut you off there, but another thing is if an athlete, particularly in football, if they decide they don't want to get they just don't want to get an education, and they're just there to play football, it's just a job, they should be allowed that opportunity. But likewise, there's certain people like Carson Wentz who had a 4.0 cum, and there are certainly a lot of players that really want the college education and want the degree. Certainly, Larry Fitzgerald just got his degree from University of Phoenix. He promised his mother he would get his degree. So, but I think if you want to opt out of going to school at all, then I think you should be able to do that. I think it's just freedom, and I like freedom.
Yeah, so when you look at athletic departments, and we have some really good comments here from a lot of people. Most athletic departments lose money, like we talked about. There's only football and basketball are the only sports that are revenue-producing sports. Everything else loses money. So the athletic departments are losing money by allocating all of this money, and I think it's Title IX, which says that every athlete, you can't be like. You can't show favoritism towards scholarships with athletes. So they got to get rid of Title IX almost immediately, because all the other sports.
If you're going to even be able to discuss the alternatives, the Title IX, they're not created equal. Tennis player is not a revenue. You're not a revenue producing sport.
I have an idea.
Yep.
Why don't you just start cutting scholarships for these other sports or make them club sports? So then you can just get to men's basketball.
I think it's bad.
Football.
Firstly, if I look at the biggest ripoff as the college tuitions, incredible ripoff, especially schools are getting tremendous endowments. There's plenty of money, and these big schools, I just don't feel that bad for them. And for the players, if they were to get, there's got to be a limit. Yeah, and that's the hard thing. This is not an easy dialogue. How about like the third string long snapper on a team that's number 100?
Right.
What should he get? Should he get the same amount of money as Baker Mayfield?
Nothing.
Probably not.
Well,
but if you allow Baker to get sponsors and to be able to keep that, I think that might be a good idea.
So we have a couple of questions here. How would NCAA police paying the players? Colleges will just try to
You would
pay
be
more.
You'd basically be declaring it, and once this thing is open, I think that it's like a black market. Once you ended prohibition and you legalized alcohol, it was the price came down. And it wasn't run. It was run. So I think if you open it up and you put it out in the that way, I think that it'll be easier to police than what's going on right now. There's a lot of runners for a lot of agents. So agents are paying money, particularly to high school kids. There's also sneaker companies primarily paying off it, whether it's Under Armour or Adidas or Nike.
Sure.
They're trying to get these guys paid off early, and then they go to a school, a college, and then they stay with it and an agent. So this is everybody's getting paid.
Why don't you?
And that's just the reality of it.
Just allow the players to just market off of themselves, sell their own jerseys. Like, the thing is about, like, if Baker Mayfield wanted to sign with Under Armour and he's playing in Oklahoma, like, the schools make all their money based on the companies, though. Like, look at Oregon and Nike.
Well, maybe they'll open it up. Maybe it'll be like antitrust. Maybe they'll make it so that a college cannot align with one brand and that they have to be open so the individual players can sign up. So essentially, it's almost like free agency. And allowing more freedom and free agency, rather than having to go to a school and being locked in to a contract, I think that's where a lot of the problems start.
Have football be its own entity away from NCAA.
Well, when you look at the college national championship, it's actually a separate. That's a separate group, but it's all under the NCAA. Who are we kidding there?
There's only a couple of players, though, that I think, like I know, like, the Alabama and Georgia players, but all the backups are just, walk-on kids. You look at –
They wouldn't command sponsorship. That's what
even
you're saying.
in the Big 12.
Who would pay that?
Like, look at the Big 12. Like, look at the defensive players in the Big 12 that are just not going to be playing at the NFL level. Look at the Pac-12 defensive kids. I mean, it'd be so hard to police it, but the one guys who have big gripes are like the Johnny Manziels, the superstar Leonard Fournettes, the guys that, are stars at college.
Particularly in football, because you have to play 3 years, I guess.
Lamar Jackson. These are just
this is the problem. This is the problem. In football, many more career-ending injuries in college. So many examples of guys that basically went there really to play football, had no interest in academics. They blew out their knees in their junior year. They gave everything to the school. The school built $100 million stadiums, and they ended up with nothing. They ended up working down the street from the college stadium doing some menial job. So I think football, basketball players do get paid. It's a one and done. So I empathize more for the football players, and especially the guys that get hurt. Everybody, I guess, in football, other than maybe the kickers, are really putting themselves at risk because it's a very physical game. I think we should try to wrap it up.
Absolutely. Appreciate Jetscentral coming on the show today. We're going to try to download this, into a sound audio podcast. It's under Rover Sports. So if you guys, again, want to tell your friends about it, we should be able to have an iTunes podcasting page, which, again, is very exciting because we look up to the greats on, the podcasters such as Bill Simmons, such as Big Cat, PFT Commenter. All the elite ones are on iTunes. So we're really excited to eventually get this on iTunes. It should be up in the next couple of days. And I want to, again, thank Jetscentral and everybody for commenting on the show.
I want to thank everybody for Rover Sports, and we're here in Philly. And as I always say, good night and good sports.